everybody, and welcome. I'm your host, Danny Osmond. If you love podcasts, if you are passionate about your business, if you want to create and grow a podcast that will connect you with your ideal customers, and you want access to education, to resources, and to other amazing business leaders and podcasters who can help you do it better every single day, then this is the podcast for you. Last week, we talked about how executives can use a podcast to put a face on their company or brand. This week, we're going to cover how podcasts can actually help executives connect with their current and potential employees. Let's start with a perfect example of how this can work for you. Leecockrell, who is former executive vice president of operations for the Walt Disney World Resort, stresses in his books and his keynotes how important it is to communicate with employees and show appreciation for a job well done. Well, as the senior operating executive for 10 years at Walt Disney World, Lee led a team of around 40,000 cast members and was responsible for the operations of 20 resort hotels, 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, a shopping and entertainment village, and the ESPN Sports and Recreation Complex, in addition to the ancillary operations which supported the #1 vacation destination in the world. You can imagine that it was difficult for an executive responsible for that many employees and such a huge operation to stay connected with individual employees. Besides making a point of spending time walking the parks daily, Lee created the Main Street Diary, which was an employee newsletter that he used to build connections with cast members, enhance the Disney culture, and share cast member success stories. So let's fast forward a few years. His son Dan, who started right out of college parking cars in the Epcot parking lot, worked his way up to a frontline food and beverage manager at the Disneyland Resort Paris, and eventually served as vice president at Epcot, Disney Hollywood Studios, and then finally at the Magic Kingdom before retiring. Continued his father's tradition of building connections with his cast members. However, Dan did it with a podcast. And I'm going to use Dan as an example next week, but Dan actually used a podcast to do the same thing that his father Lee did with cast members at the Disney World Resort. Podcasting is mainstream. We know that. In 2017, 2018, over 50 million Americans listen to podcasts weekly. 32% of those listeners were between the age of 25 and 54. Another 31% were under the age of 24. The average listener subscribes to 6 shows. They consume 7 episodes a week, and 80% of listeners listen to more than half or all of an episode. And forward-thinking companies are actually using podcasts as a convenient way to connect with their employees. You can count Marriott, Geico, Johns Hopkins University in this category of businesses using podcasts to communicate with employees. So why does this work? Well, if you've listened to my other episodes, you know already that podcasts showcase authenticity and personality even better than some other mediums like video or a blog. They allow you to get rid of the long emails and scripted speeches that you might be sending out to employees or giving to employees. You can just talk and let them hear a more personal side of you. Leaders and other key members of the staff who become the podcast host are in the ears of the listener a lot longer than someone who's in a video. So those employees can actually hear your voice, unlike some blog or some memo, email that they decided to read. And you come across more real and authentic because there isn't any fancy lighting and graphics like you'd have in a produced video. Podcasts can also be consumed on the go. No longer do you need to have as many boring meetings to communicate with all your employees. Your employees can listen in the car, at the gym, walking to work, whatever they want, wherever they want. For many employees in a large company, leaders often seem like distant figures. The podcast allows them to connect with employees in a way that builds a personal bond and appreciation between the two. Think about it this way. If you were hanging out with someone at their house, in their car, at the gym, while walking around, how long do you think it would take to build a real bond with them? To know, like, and trust them? Not long at all, right? Now, I know some of you may have visions in your head of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation where they kidnap Brian Doyle Murray, the boss that has stiffed everyone on their bonuses, but it's not like that. You actually will build a nice bond with your employees. They will know, like, and trust you. And more importantly, they develop a deeper relationship with the company mission, the stories of the company, the goals of the company, and the company culture. So here are some suggested ways that you can use a podcast. Several platforms like Libsyn, Podbean, Blueberry, these are hosts. They offer enterprise podcast hosting solutions that allow you to securely provide the company podcast, the CEO podcast, whatever, only to employees, meaning it wouldn't go out into the world. It wouldn't go up on Apple Podcast app or whatever. This allows you to include sensitive information in these podcasts, things like messages from leaders, team meetings, important company announcements, organizational changes, HR announcements, employee orientation and onboarding, corporate earnings calls. Companies like Marriott are using podcasts even for recruitment. It's a way that they can communicate information about their company that would be helpful to job seekers. It's an amazing way to use the authenticity of podcasting to your advantage early on because it builds trust with potential candidates before they even walk in the door for an interview. Think of it this way. If they apply because they heard your podcast, you probably know that they understand what the company's about, the company values, the company benefits. They're going to go through the training and they're going to stick around. There's not going to be that turnover that happens a lot of times after about a year or two of being with a company. And then all that money you spent training them and recruiting them in the first place, wasted. These employees that are recruited through a podcast stick around and actually save the company money. Podcasts can help you build connections. They can enhance culture and they can strengthen bonds throughout your company. So there you have it. I want to take a moment to thank a recent reviewer. This review came from Lynn Freest. Lynn says, Danny has shown me the path forward. I had stage fright. I was concerned that I could not deliver a well thought out and high quality podcast. Danny helped me find the confidence to speak and publish. Danny demystified the tech of podcasting and helped with not just the tech, but helped me build systems to make the workflow smoothly and make it easier to succeed. Thanks for that great review, Lynn. If you're ready to make a real change in your business in 2019, start today by, first of all, subscribing to this show on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, Android, Google Podcasts, wherever you're listening. Number 2, write a 5-star rating and review like Lynn did. And number 3, share it with a friend, a colleague, a coworker, another executive who you think would enjoy our episodes. Now, I can't wait to finish out this Why Executives Should Be Podcasting series next week, when I'll talk to you about how executives can use a podcast to pivot out of their current position, start a new career, start their own consulting firm, or speaking business. Hope to see you then.